Hi,
Hi,
Anikia. How are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining me on this Zoom call. So, I just wanted to get on here and just ask you a couple of questions. One about your pregnancy, and then two about your experience with EMCare2U. I know you're a busy mom and you have baby and things to do, so I won't take up too much of your time. So, just the first question I have is going into delivery, what were the expectations that you had? What were some fears and concerns that you had about just giving birth in general?
Well, I knew I was having a VBAC, and my doctors were concerned about how big the baby was going to be. So, probably my number one concern was the actual labor itself and whether I was going to be able to have a vaginal delivery, whether there would be any like emergent complications or a need for emergency C-section, things like that. And also just based on my previous experiences, like how supportive the medical team would be, whether I would feel heard and supported and
Mm,
all of that. So,
mm.
yeah.
Okay, those are legitimate concerns, especially, with your prior experiences too. So I could definitely understand the anxiety. And once you finally, made it to full term and you were now about to give birth, what was that experience like, just of your birthing process?
So, kind of mixed. So my labor, I feel like, was very much supported. I had a really great team, including my husband and my doula and the nurses and midwives at the hospital. Once we had to go to C-section, that felt very safe and supported as well in
Mhm.
terms of feeling like this is what the hospital does. Everything ran very smoothly. However, once we were in the C-section, we had some things transpire that were less than ideal. Some out of our, well, all of them out of our control, really. Some medical and some more, I guess, interpersonal with the medical team. Um,
Mm,
but then all in all, we both myself and the baby, seemed healthy and fine
mm.
afterwards. So we were grateful for that.
Good. And once you got home, like, what exactly happened that led you to call EM Care to You? Just like, can you just let me know, like, just for our listeners to just like kind of have an understanding of how you and I met?
Yeah, so once I got home, I thought everything was proceeding as normal. But a few days, I think it was like 5 to 6 days after giving birth, I started having really bad flank pain. Um, that would come in waves like in the middle of the night. And before that, I felt like my pain had been improving, my mobility was improving. So it seemed like I was going in the right direction, and then things just felt very, very off.
Mm,
And so I called my OB, and the practice is pretty large, but the doctor that I got was also concerned and wanted to have me seen. But the midwife that I saw was extremely dismissive, um, and really just like blamed my symptoms on me not resting enough, not drinking enough water, not eating the right things. And so that visit was very uncomfortable for me, to say the least, and worrisome. And I thought a lot about calling back again and trying to be seen again. But number one, my trust in the practice kind of vanished after that visit. And then I don't know, I guess I didn't also want to be seen as like a troublemaker,
mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, so, like you're in this vulnerable position of trying to seek help and care, but then also um, having to advocate for yourself at the same time, which is a lot when you're trying to take care of yourself and your baby and your family. So we had initially said we were going to try to monitor my symptoms at home. But when I voiced some concerns in the moms group I was in, um, the person who started the moms group was also concerned and happens to know you, so connected us um, out of concern for my symptoms and that sort of thing. So, and I'm very glad that she did.
Yes. And that's how we met. And then I ended up at your house. And what were
Mhm.
your like expectations when someone came to your house? Like, have you ever had that experience before? Uh,
No, I hadn't had that experience before, so I really didn't know what to expect.
Mhm.
And based on how I was feeling, I felt like it was just gonna be like a quick, check in and everything would be fine and
Mhm.
all of
And then
that.
what happened?
And it
Uh,
was a very pleasant experience. You were very calm and thorough and listened to all my concerns. I remember feeling like, wow, I'm telling her a lot or I'm taking up a lot of her time, but but you didn't, make it feel that way. It felt like you had all the time in the world.
mhm,
And then I remember when you took my blood pressure, it was very high, like
mhm.
alarmingly high. Um, and you recommended that I be seen in the hospital. So very glad that you were able to catch that.
Absolutely. And I think in the end, you got the help that you needed and got your blood pressures down, and hopefully things were, a lot more calm after that for you. So,
Yeah, definitely. So I did get the care that I needed in the hospital. But again, with the experience that I had with the practice, it was really helpful to have you as a sounding board, to text you and say, okay, here's what they're recommending. Does that make sense?
mhm.
And then just navigating the medication titration, I relied on you for that as well because the doctor that saw, well, the doctor that I was under the care of in the hospital gave me very, very brief instructions as to how to manage the medication and in terms of, what blood pressure should dictate what dose.
Mhm.
And so I relied on you a lot to manage that and to make medication changes and all of that. And then nutrition support as well, because I
Yes,
did
I was
not
going to
want
ask
to
you about
be,
that.
yeah, I did not want to be on medicine for longer than I needed to. So I was really interested in having the support to make the right lifestyle choices. And so your nutritionist, Lydia, was wonderful. And I had never worked with a nutritionist before and definitely had some preconceived notions about it being like a more punitive approach.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so I really appreciated her like not making me feel bad for like how much weight I had gained or my like lack of activity, my physical activity not being where it needed to be. She's very supportive and took a very gentle approach that was also evidence-based
Mhm.
and incorporated a lot of the foods that I would eat culturally as well,
Yeah.
which I believe is rare when if you just find a nutritionist somewhere and they might not be familiar with those sorts of things. So I feel like I got very comprehensive support and I was able to be off of the medicine before the baby turned 4 months old. So
Great. I love that. Love that story. And the last question I have is, would you recommend my services to other postpartum women? And if so, why?
so I do recommend your services to all postpartum women because I feel like, for me going through my pregnancy, I was healthy. I had no indication that I would have any sort of complication afterwards. And yet I did. And it seemed to me that the care that I had set up before with my regular OB was not adequate to, to catch that or to care for me in the way that I needed to be cared for,
Mm,
um, with the complication that I had. And so, um, I wish that our obstetric care was more comprehensive. And from talking to a lot of women, like that feeling of being dismissed by providers or not listened to is really, really common. And so I feel like it's up to us as women to make sure that we have the support that we need medically.
yeah.
Um, so, and especially like in that first 6 week
Mhm.
period after delivery, where you're kind of expected to just take care of yourself and your baby and your healing body and everything. Um, and then not see any kind of medical care until 6 weeks, which I think is really inadequate.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
so that's why I recommend you, of course.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. You can go back to your baby and your family. I